Don't let them take me back. The woman stumbled through the darkness and pressed a trembling hand against the rancher's barn door. Caleb Boone had one hand on his rifle before the door finished swinging open. Rain hissed against the roof. Wind shoved through the mountain pines, carrying the smell of wet earth and distant smoke. Caleb stood barefoot in his long underwear, his jaw tight, his rifle leveled at the stranger's chest. She was soaked through. Her brown traveling dress clung to her thin frame, mud covered the hem, and a dark wool cloak hung from one shoulder by a single broken clasp. Chestnut hair had escaped whatever tie once held it, falling in tangled waves around a pale face. But it was her eyes that stopped him, green, terrified, and watching the road behind her as if the devil himself were coming down it. "Who's after you?" Caleb asked. She swallowed. "They'll kill me if they find me." A horse screamed somewhere beyond the barn. The woman flinched so violently that Caleb lowered the rifle. "Inside." She stared at him. "I said inside." This time she obeyed. Caleb shut the door and slid the iron bar into place. For several seconds, neither spoke. Then came the sound. Hoofbeats. Slow. Measured. 3 riders at least. The woman backed toward the hayloft ladder. Caleb watched her hand disappear beneath her cloak. "Whatever you're carrying," he said quietly, "keep it where I can see it." She froze. "I have no weapon." "That wasn't what I asked." Her fingers tightened beneath the cloak. Caleb sighed. "I don't care what you stole. I care whether the men outside have enough reason to burn my ranch looking for it." "They won't burn your ranch." "You sound certain." "They need this valley." That answer bothered him. Caleb crossed the barn and lifted a loose board beside the tack room. "Get down." She didn't move. "Now." Something in his voice made her obey. She crawled into the narrow space beneath the floorboards just as the riders stopped outside. A fist struck the barn door. Caleb picked up his rifle. "Open up." The voice carried the confidence of a man accustomed to being obeyed. Caleb remained silent. Another knock. "Caleb Boone." His eyes narrowed. The woman beneath the floorboards closed her eyes. Caleb knew that name. Sheriff Amos Vale. A lawman who had spent the past 6 months riding through the mountain settlements with a warrant bearing the seal of the territorial court. "What do you want?" "Sheriff, we're looking for a woman." Caleb looked down at the floor. "What woman?" "She calls herself Evelyn Hart." The woman beneath the boards stopped breathing. Caleb's grip tightened around his rifle. The sheriff continued. "She's wanted for murder." Silence filled the barn. Rain hammered the roof. Caleb glanced toward the cracks between the boards. Evelyn was staring up at him. He had known her for less than 5 minutes. Yet something in her face told him the sheriff had not told the whole story. "Why would she come here?" Caleb asked. "She knows you." Caleb frowned. "I've never seen her." The sheriff laughed. "You haven't. But she knows about you." Caleb's eyes hardened. "What does that mean?" "It means she believes mountain men have longer memories than city gentlemen." The sheriff kicked the barn door. "Open it, Boone." Caleb did not move. The woman below whispered so softly he almost missed it. "Please." He looked at the floor. It was one word. One frightened word. Yet Caleb had spent enough years alone in these mountains to recognize the difference between a liar's fear and a hunted person's terror. He opened the small side window instead. "Search the barn if you've got a warrant." "I've got one." "Then show it." A pause. Caleb smiled without humor. The sheriff had none. "Come back at daylight. You'll regret helping her." "Maybe." Caleb stepped closer to the door. "But you'll have to prove I did." The horses shifted outside. After another long silence, the riders turned away. Their hoofbeats faded into the rain. Caleb waited. 1 minute, then another. Finally, he lifted the floorboard. Evelyn crawled out, shaking. "They'll come back," she whispered. "They will. You should let me leave." "Where?" She looked toward the black windows. "Anywhere." Caleb studied her face. Then he noticed the blood. Not hers. A dark stain marked the inside of her cloak. "You're carrying something." She slowly reached beneath the wool and pulled out a small brass locket. Caleb stared at it. There was a tiny engraving on the back. A mountain. And beneath it, the initials CB. His initials. His face changed. Where did you get that? Evelyn's eyes filled with tears. From your brother. Caleb went completely still. His brother, Daniel, had been dead for 11 years. No one alive should have possessed anything bearing those initials. Evelyn closed her fingers around the locket. He told me if I ever had nowhere else to go, I should find the man who lived above Boone Pass. Caleb stared at her as thunder rolled across the mountains. Then she said the words that changed everything. Your brother didn't die in that mine collapse. Caleb did not answer. He simply stared at the locket. For 11 years, he had carried one memory of Daniel. A blackened mountain tunnel, a collapsed entrance, and 6 men telling him there had been no survivors. Caleb had been 27. Daniel had been 30. They had argued that morning. Caleb remembered every word. Daniel had wanted to inspect an abandoned silver tunnel before winter. Caleb had told him it was foolish. Daniel had laughed. You worry too much. Those had been his last words. Or so Caleb had believed. Tell me where you got that. Evelyn lowered her eyes. Not here. Caleb's jaw tightened. Then where? She looked toward the window. The sheriff wasn't looking for me because of murder. That's what he said. He wants the locket. Why? Because your brother left something behind. Caleb stepped closer. What? I don't know. He studied her. You expect me to believe that? I expect you to decide whether you'd rather know the truth or remain comfortable. The words struck harder than they should have. Caleb turned away. Outside, rain dripped from the eaves. Somewhere in the darkness, a horse stamped against wet ground. He had spent 11 years trying to become comfortable with a lie. Perhaps that was why the truth frightened him. He lit a lantern. Sit. Evelyn hesitated. I'm not going to hurt you. I know. You don't sound like you know. She slowly sat on an overturned feed bucket. Caleb noticed her hands. They were bruised. The wrists showed marks from rope. His eyes darkened. Who did that? She pulled her sleeves down. Someone who thought he owned me. Caleb said nothing. He walked to a cabinet and removed bread, dried meat, and a tin cup. He set them before her. She stared. When did you last eat? Yesterday morning. Eat. She tore off a piece of bread. Her hands trembled so badly that crumbs fell into her lap. Caleb looked away to give her dignity. While she ate, he cleaned the blood from the cloak. It wasn't hers. There were 2 bullet holes near the shoulder. Someone shot at you. Yes. Who? The men who killed the man I was traveling with. Caleb stopped. Who was he? Thomas Reed. Caleb recognized the name. Every rancher within 50 miles knew it. Reed had worked for a wealthy cattle baron named Silas Mercer. Mercer owned half the valley and wanted the rest. Why were you traveling with Reed? He helped me escape. From Mercer. Evelyn nodded. Caleb stared at the fire. Mercer. The name brought an old bitterness into his chest. Years earlier, Mercer had purchased the mine where Daniel disappeared. Caleb had never trusted him. He had simply lacked proof. Your brother knew Mercer, Evelyn said. Caleb turned. What did Daniel know? That Mercer was stealing silver. From the mine. From the territory. She reached into her dress and pulled out a folded scrap of paper. Caleb opened it. A list of names, dates, amounts. At the bottom was Daniel's handwriting. Caleb knew it instantly. His heart struck hard against his ribs. Where did you get this? Daniel gave it to me. When? 3 weeks ago. Caleb looked up sharply. 3 weeks. He was alive. The room seemed suddenly smaller. Evelyn continued. He had been hiding in the mountains under another name. He found me after Mercer discovered I had seen something I wasn't supposed to see. What did you see? A murder. Caleb waited. I saw Mercer shoot a man who refused to falsify a shipment record. Her voice cracked. Then Mercer saw me. Caleb's expression hardened. You ran. I ran for 3 days. And Daniel found you. Yes. He sent you here. He told me you were the only man he trusted. Caleb looked down at the locket. Then why didn't he come? Evelyn's face fell. He did. Silence. He followed me. Caleb looked toward the door. When? Yesterday. A cold feeling moved through him. Where is he? Evelyn's eyes filled. They caught him near the Eastern Trail. Caleb stepped forward. Is he alive? I don't know. That was enough. Caleb grabbed his coat. Evelyn rose. Where are you going? To find him. No. Caleb stopped. She stood between him and the door. If Mercer knows you have that list, he'll kill you too. Caleb's eyes narrowed. Move. You'll die. Maybe. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. He looked at her. You came here because my brother trusted me. If he's alive, I bring him home. And if he's dead? Caleb's expression softened. Then I bury him. Evelyn stared at him. You'd risk everything for a man you haven't seen in 11 years? Caleb looked toward the dark mountains. He's my brother. Outside, a rifle cracked. The lantern flame jumped. A bullet punched through the barn wall. Evelyn screamed. Caleb dragged her behind a support beam. Another shot. Then another. From the ridge came a voice. Boone. Caleb recognized it. Silas Mercer. You have something that belongs to me. Caleb looked at Evelyn. She was pale but no longer trembling. She reached beneath her cloak. This time she drew a small pistol. I can shoot. Caleb nodded. I believe you. He checked his rifle. Mercer's voice echoed through the rain. Give me the woman, Boone, and we'll forget this night. Caleb stepped toward the door. No. The gunfire began. The first bullet shattered the lantern. Darkness swallowed the barn. Caleb fired toward the muzzle flash outside. A man shouted. Evelyn dropped behind a stack of hay as bullets ripped through the wooden walls. Stay low. I am low. Caleb almost smiled. Even frightened. She had fire in her voice. He crawled toward the rear door. 3 riders. Maybe 4. Mercer had brought enough men to make surrender tempting. Caleb knew better. He had lived in these mountains long enough to understand one rule. A man who arrived with 10 guns did not intend to leave witnesses. There's a trail behind the barn, Evelyn whispered. I know. We can reach the creek. Can you ride? Yes. Good. Caleb grabbed 2 rifles, a box of cartridges, and a blanket. He kicked open the rear door. Cold rain struck his face. Run. They sprinted. A shot tore through Caleb's coat. He ignored it. Evelyn reached the horses first. Caleb mounted beside her. They plunged into the trees. Branches whipped across their faces. Behind them, Mercer shouted orders. The mountain swallowed the riders. Caleb leaned low over his horse's neck. Don't look back. Evelyn did anyway. How many? Enough. That isn't an answer. 4. She tightened her reins. 5. Caleb glanced behind. A 5th rider emerged through the rain. Ride. They reached the creek. Water surged over the stones, swollen by the storm. Caleb dismounted. Across. Evelyn stared. You first. He looked at her. If the water takes you, I'm coming after you. She shook her head. You'll lose the horse. Then I'll walk. Something changed in her expression. She rode into the water. The current struck the horse's legs. It stumbled. Evelyn cried out. Caleb plunged in after her. The river slammed against his knees. He caught the horse's bridle. Easy. A rifle cracked from the trees. The bullet struck the water. Caleb pulled Evelyn forward. They reached the opposite bank. For several minutes they lay beneath the pines, breathing hard. Then Evelyn laughed. Caleb looked at her. She covered her mouth. I thought I was going to die. You nearly did. I know. Her laughter became a sob. Caleb looked away. They could not stay. Mercer would search the valley. They needed Daniel. Caleb rose. There's an old mining cabin 2 miles north. Will it be safe? No. Evelyn gave him a tired look. That's reassuring. It'll have a roof. That'll do. They reached the cabin before dawn. Inside, Caleb found fresh ash in the fireplace. Someone had been there. Recently, he drew his pistol. "Stay behind me." A voice came from the darkness. "You always did give orders." Caleb froze. The voice was older, rougher, but unmistakable. "Daniel." A figure stepped into the firelight. His brother stood there, alive, older by 11 years. His beard was streaked with gray, one eye swollen, and a scar ran from his temple to his jaw. Caleb stared. Neither man moved. Then Caleb crossed the room. He punched Daniel in the shoulder. Daniel grunted. "You're alive." "So are you." Caleb grabbed him and pulled him into an embrace. For a moment the mountains disappeared. Then Daniel looked at Evelyn. "You brought her." Caleb released him. "She brought herself." Daniel nodded. "Good." Evelyn stepped forward. "I thought they killed you." "They tried." "What happened?" Daniel's face hardened. "Mercer found the ledger." Caleb pulled out the list. Daniel stared. "Where did you get that?" "From Evelyn." Daniel looked at her with surprise. "You kept it." She nodded. "I promised." Daniel sat beside the fire. "Then we have one chance." Caleb crossed his arms. "Tell me everything." Daniel did. Mercer had been stealing silver for years. He bribed officials, killed miners, and forged records. Daniel discovered the operation and tried to expose him. Mercer trapped him in the mine. But Daniel survived. He escaped through an old ventilation shaft and spent years gathering evidence. Evelyn had worked as a bookkeeper at Mercer's headquarters. She discovered the falsified accounts. Mercer tried to kill her. Daniel rescued her. Now the ledger could destroy him. "But there's more," Daniel said. Caleb waited. "Mercer has men inside the territorial court." "How many?" "Enough to make the ledger disappear." Evelyn looked toward the window. "Then why?" "Bring it here." Daniel's eyes moved to Caleb. "Because there's one Judge Mercer doesn't control." "Who?" "Judge Elias Boone." Caleb stared. "Their father's name." "He's dead." Daniel nodded. "He died believing I was dead too." Caleb understood. Their father had left the mountains years earlier. No one knew where he had gone. But Daniel had found him. "He lives in Mercy Ridge," Daniel said. Evelyn whispered. "Then we take the evidence there." Daniel shook his head. "Not anymore." Outside, a horse whinnied. Caleb reached for his pistol. Daniel's face went pale. "They followed us." A voice came through the trees. "Daniel." "Mercer." Caleb looked at Evelyn. She held the pistol tightly. Daniel whispered, "There is another way out." The cabin door exploded inward. Mercer's men stormed inside. Caleb fired. Daniel fired. Evelyn fired. The room became smoke and thunder. One man fell. Another fled. Caleb grabbed Evelyn and pulled her toward the rear passage. Then Mercer stepped through the doorway, his rifle aimed directly at Daniel. Caleb raised his gun. Mercer smiled. "Shoot me, Boone, and your brother dies with me." Caleb stopped. Evelyn looked at him. Daniel lowered his weapon. Mercer cocked his rifle. And Caleb realized he had seconds to choose between vengeance and survival. Caleb slowly lowered his pistol. Mercer smiled. "That's better." Then Evelyn stepped forward. "No." Mercer turned. She fired. The bullet struck his shoulder. Mercer spun backward. Caleb grabbed Daniel. "Move." They escaped through the rear tunnel. The three of them ran until the cabin disappeared behind the trees. By noon, they reached an abandoned hunting camp beneath a stone ridge. Daniel was wounded. Evelyn cleaned the bullet crease on his arm while Caleb built a small fire. Nobody spoke for several minutes. Rain softened to a mist. Pine smoke curled between the trees. Finally, Daniel looked at Caleb. "You still blame yourself." Caleb kept his eyes on the fire. "For what?" "You know." Caleb's jaw tightened. "I should have gone into the mine with you. You would have died." "Maybe." Daniel shook his head. "You were always better at carrying guilt than truth." Caleb said nothing. Evelyn watched them. Then she removed the brass locket. "I should tell you something." Caleb looked up. She opened it. Inside was a tiny photograph. A young woman stood beside a little boy. Caleb recognized the woman. His mother. He had never seen the photograph. "Where did you get that?" "Daniel." Caleb took it. His thumb traced the faded edge. "Our mother gave it to me before she died," he whispered. Evelyn nodded. "She asked Daniel to protect it." Caleb stared at her. "Why give it to you?" "Because Daniel believed you needed something that belonged to the family you lost." Caleb swallowed. He looked away quickly. Evelyn pretended not to notice his eyes. She reached into her bag and pulled out a strip of blue cloth. "This belonged to my mother." Caleb frowned. "She died when I was 12. Evelyn folded the cloth carefully. "Mercer bought my father's debts. After my mother died, he took control of our home." Her voice became quiet. "He told me I owed him." Caleb's hands curled into fists. "I spent years believing that." "You don't anymore?" She looked at him. "No." "Why?" "Because Daniel showed me that a debt can be written on paper." She touched her heart. "But ownership cannot." Caleb nodded slowly. Evelyn looked toward the mountains. "I was running because I thought my past was stronger than me." Caleb watched her. "It isn't." "How do you know?" "Because you're still running." She smiled faintly. "That isn't very comforting." "It wasn't meant to be." A silence followed. Then Caleb reached into his coat and removed a small carved wooden horse. Evelyn recognized it. "Daniel made that." "He made it when we were boys." Caleb placed it in her hand. "Keep it." "Why?" "Because you kept his secret." Her fingers closed around the carving. Their hands touched. Neither moved. The moment was quiet. No thunder. No gunfire. Only wind through pine branches. Then Caleb said softly, "You don't have to run anymore." Evelyn looked into his eyes. "I might not know how to stay." "Then learn." Her eyes filled. "You make that sound easy." "It isn't." He looked toward the fire. "I spent 11 years hiding from my brother's death." Daniel gave a quiet snort. "I wasn't dead." "I know that now." "You're still hiding." Caleb looked at him. Daniel smiled. "From what?" Caleb glanced at Evelyn. She lowered her eyes. Daniel understood. "Caleb." "What?" "If you care for her, don't make the mistake of thinking protecting her means choosing for her." Caleb remained silent. Evelyn looked up. "He's right." Caleb nodded. "You're right." That answer surprised her. He continued, "I can't promise you'll never be afraid." "I know." "I can't promise Mercer won't come." "I know. But if you stay, you won't face him alone." Evelyn's lips trembled. "Why?" Caleb looked at her. "Because you came to my door." She smiled through tears. "And you opened it." "Yes." A gunshot cracked in the distance. Everyone froze. Daniel rose. "They found us." Caleb looked toward the ridge. Then he noticed something on the ground. A fresh horseshoe mark. Mercer was closing in. But Caleb no longer intended to run. He stood. "We go to Mercy Ridge." Daniel nodded. Evelyn rose beside him. "What happens if Mercer reaches us first?" Caleb checked his rifle. "Then we make sure he never reaches the judge." They began walking. Behind them, the fire burned low. Ahead waited the town, the judge, the ledger, and the man who had haunted their family for 11 years. Evelyn slipped the carved horse into her pocket. For the first time since she had fled, she wasn't looking behind her. Mercy Ridge appeared at sunset. The town sat between two mountains, its wooden buildings glowing beneath a red sky. Caleb, Daniel, and Evelyn entered through the eastern road. Nobody spoke. Everyone knew something was coming. Judge Elias Boone lived above the old courthouse. Caleb climbed the steps. He knocked. The door opened. An old man stood there. His hair was white. His eyes were tired. Then he saw Daniel. The old man's hand dropped from the doorframe. "Daniel." Daniel nodded. Their father covered his mouth. For several seconds, no one moved. Then Elias pulled his son inside. Caleb followed. Evelyn waited outside. She watched the mountains. A rider appeared on the western road. Then another. Mercer. She reached for her pistol. Caleb stepped beside her. "You don't have to hide." "I know." The riders entered the square. Mercer held one arm against his wounded shoulder. "You should have kept running," he called. Evelyn stepped forward. "No." Mercer laughed. "You think that ledger will save you?" "No." She raised the pistol. "You're going to save yourself." Mercer's smile faded. Behind him, townspeople emerged from their homes. Some carried rifles. Some carried nothing. But they watched. Daniel came down the courthouse steps with Judge Boone. Elias held the ledger. "Silas Mercer," he said, "you are charged with murder, fraud, theft, and conspiracy." Mercer looked around. "You have no authority." Elias lifted the territorial seal. "I have enough." Mercer reached for his gun. Caleb fired. The bullet struck the dirt beside Mercer's boot. "Don't." Mercer froze. Caleb lowered his rifle. "You've killed enough people." Mercer stared at him. Then he laughed. "You won't shoot me?" "No." "Why?" Caleb looked at Evelyn. "Because I don't want my life to become another version of yours." Mercer's face twisted. He drew anyway. Evelyn fired first. Mercer's gun fell from his hand. He collapsed to his knees. The town marshal rushed forward and took him into custody. For the first time, the square became silent. Evelyn lowered her pistol. Her hands were shaking. Caleb stepped beside her. "You all right?" She nodded. Then she looked at him. "I shot him." "You did. I thought I'd feel different." Caleb shook his head. "You don't have to." She breathed out slowly. Judge Boone opened the ledger. The evidence inside was enough. Mercer's accounts named every bribe, every stolen shipment, every murdered witness. By morning, the territorial authorities had arrived. Mercer was taken away in chains. His properties were seized. The miners he had cheated received payment. The names of the dead were recorded. Daniel stayed in Mercy Ridge long enough to testify. Judge Boone apologized to his sons for believing the mine collapse had killed him. Caleb never blamed him. Some wounds did not need blame. They needed time. Weeks passed. Then months. Spring returned to the mountains. Caleb repaired the ranch. Daniel decided to remain nearby and reopen the old forge. Evelyn stayed. First, she slept with a pistol beneath her pillow. Then one night, she left it on the table. The next morning, Caleb found it there. He said nothing. She noticed him looking. "I forgot it." "No." She smiled. "You think I left it there on purpose?" "I think you're learning." "Learning what?" "That safe doesn't mean helpless." She walked toward him. "And what does staying mean?" Caleb looked at the mountains. "It means you get to decide where you belong." She reached into her pocket and pulled out the carved wooden horse. "You gave me this." "I remember. I think I want to give you something." She placed it in his hand. The brass locket. Caleb stared. "I can't take that." "You can. It belonged to Daniel. He gave it to me. And now," Evelyn smiled, "now I know where I belong." Caleb looked at her. For once, there were no words large enough. So he simply took her hand. Behind them, Daniel laughed from the barn. "You two planning to stand there all morning?" Evelyn smiled. Caleb shook his head. Some things did not need explaining. Years later, travelers passing through Boone Pass would hear stories about the mountain cowboy who refused to surrender a frightened woman to a corrupt cattle baron. They would hear about the brothers separated by 11 years of silence. They would hear about the ledger that exposed a powerful man. But Evelyn remembered something different. She remembered a rainy night, a barn door, a rifle, and a stranger who could have turned her away. Instead, Caleb had opened the door. He never promised that the past would disappear. He never promised that fear would never return. He simply gave her something she had forgotten existed, a choice. And when she finally understood that safety was not a place but a person who respected her freedom, she stopped running. Years later, Evelyn would sometimes sit on the porch with Caleb while their children played among the wildflowers. The mountains remained the same. The wind still moved through the pines. The old barn still creaked when storms came. But she no longer listened for hoofbeats in the darkness. She listened for Caleb's boots coming across the porch. One evening, as the sun dropped behind the peaks, he sat beside her. She leaned against his shoulder. "You know," she whispered, "I used to think I was running towards safety." Caleb looked at her. "And now," she smiled, "now I know I was running toward home." Caleb took her hand. Below them, the valley turned gold. The wind carried the scent of pine and summer grass through the open fields. And beneath the fading mountain light, Evelyn rested her head against the cowboy who had opened one door and changed the direction of her entire life.